I spend 50,000-70,000 pounds, I use that as a seed capital and start my company.
The thing about university is the experience, not just what you learn in the classroom. You get to interact with peers, you get to have a bunch of people.
Take advantage of that complete culture immersion that you've got coming to a university in a different part of the world, different society, meeting different people, having different conversations.
India is just not India, right? We've got a number of micro markets within one market. Africa is the same, China is the same.
I initially planned to go to the US, and then London specifically was my second option. At the time, London felt a little more right for me.
If you're going to be a doctor, we want you to have a degree. Don't learn that on YouTube.
Hey everyone, trust everyone doing well. Yet another episode. On that note, allow me to introduce today's guest or guest. I have few bunch of guests today. First of all, thank you so much, Professor. Board. And see, I remember, and I'm saying hello to you. In India we say hello like this. Yeah. And thank you for coming all the way from UK in the great weather of June, July. And enjoying India's air conditioners, because you told that in UK we have very less. So I'll ask you to introduce yourself. Allow me to talk. Can I call you a friend?
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah,
of course.
Friend who I met second time in life. Yeah, but this is about good thing about the industry. You might not be meeting every day because so much of traveling, everyone is busy. But we all know all the good work each of us are doing it. And thank you so much, Ashwini. For choosing us. To share some narratives or some points which probably Middlesex is up to. And Mr. Gurdeep Billing. Did I say it right?
Binning, yep.
Binning. Very interesting name. Are you Indian? Are you UK born? Because
so I'm born in the UK, but my family originates from Punjab, in India, in Jalandhar district. And Binning, apparently, it's a Scottish ancestry. I'm sure you can all tell. but actually, I think long back, it was the name of the ancestral village where the family came from.
Wow.
Many.
You've been conceptualized in Jalandhar, produced in UK.
Yep.
Have a Scottish ancestor name, and this is about global citizenship. This is about global education, right? And then we have. Should I call you Mr. or what we call it, Thambi or
Thambi. So I'm from
Thambi
Kerala.
Kerala, yeah.
So that we
Yeah.
Thambi is actually from.
Okay, right,
Yeah.
right. See, I know a Malayalam girl is called some Kuti.
So just small kids. Kutten means
Kid.
boy, small
Okay,
boy,
okay.
and Kuti means small girl.
So, Aivin Saji.
Ivan. Yes.
Oh, sorry. It's all about AI.
Yeah.
So you have moved your pronunciation to
So I
sound
think
the
my
AI.
parents were a little far,
Far
futuristic and
yeah,
far.
yeah. So we have the first AI child, and which one? So that's how Aivin is coming.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure. It's like at least in my name I'm a winner, so
We all
I
are
had a good
winners.
start off.
You already have so much of good fortune and privilege. Why did you choose to study in UK, especially after doing your undergrad? And you seem to be a mature student. Why did you choose UK, and why probably London, or we come to a story. And if everyone allow, we know if we start with students, because you are the youth. Most of my audience don't want to listen to me. They want to talk to you because you will tell the right thing. And we don't have Bhagavad Gita to take an oath, but let's be as real as we can.
Yeah. And make sure I try to say the right things. So I actually did my undergrad in Bombay. So even though I'm from Kerala, I studied very little in Kerala. So I was studying in a boarding school in Ooty, and after that I went to Bombay St. Xavier's for my economics. Then worked with Ernst & Young for a bit. Then had a couple of startups to my name. And then after my startups, I had a good exit from them. And then I wanted to do a master's, because I always felt doing some higher education, it's not just about education, it's also the holistic development you get when you move to a different country, etc. So I initially planned to go to the US, and then London specifically was my second option. But then I felt at the time, London felt a little more right for me. So I did my master's in finance and investment. So London being one of the finance capitals, I thought that was amazing. And I chose to go to Middlesex because it's located in London. It's a good location. I think I also value the city, the universities in. So we can kind of went hand in hand. And again, I believe in life, travel, exposure, meeting people from different cultures, different countries. That gives you a better learning curve than what you learn in just a classroom. Like, I understand classroom learning is important, but then you add practicality to it. That's when you get more successful and you get a better view of life.
No, totally agree. Totally can't agree more, because I'm the product of traveling. I'm a product of randomness, getting out of my comfort zone, and I guess most of us, one thing which I always say, that we are very blessed and fortunate to be part of this space, study abroad, higher education, wherein you get to travel, you get to learn from the best of the people, and you get so much of diversity and cultural understanding, which is not an edge, it's a superpower. Because in this world, everything is there on net or ChatGPT now, right? Within a click, you can get everything on theoretically, but people who get separated is their actual experience, their connections, their network, and for that, I can't be more agree than, London is one of the best city, but why Middlesex? And you can, like, if you tell me if you give me a scripted answer, I'm gonna put you on the spot, right? So tell me why London
Don't
and
worry,
why
I
Middlesex?
heard about this podcast 1 hour before I got here. So actually, I think the course I wanted to do MSc Finance and Investment, because hopefully one day I can get into investment banking and further on. So I wanted to specialize in finance. I looked at the course. I was able to resonate with the modules and the teaching offered. London. Then it was, I think Middlesex was more on the affordable lines in terms of tuition fee. Yeah, I think that's the main. And then what I also did was, while looking at the universities, I was fortunate enough to speak to someone in Middlesex who was currently a student. So I got a better insight. And I also have a relative who was a graduate from Middlesex. So again, good reviews from a known source. So that kind of helped me just wave through and go for the admission process.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Thank you, and allow me to get back. Right. I mean, I know a bit about you, but you don't need any introduction.
Of course.
Right. You've been in this space like an elephant, for ages.
You can call elephant, you can call dinosaur.
Dinosaur?
Whatever. Yeah.
No, I stay with elephant, but dinosaur doesn't exist now.
Yeah.
So.
Perfect.
And I know you've been very kind. I met you once in Hyderabad.
That's right.
And that meeting just is still very fresh in my mind. So why don't you share your journey and about yourself?
Well, myself, I take care of the recruitment for Middlesex University, London, for past 1.5 years. But I have come into this industry almost 24 years back. Yeah, the next year, February, I'm going to have my 25 years.
Wow.
In
And
this,
in this space,
industry of,
there's no PF, there's no gratuity,
absolutely nothing. It's just the love for
changing careers or
changing
creating an impact.
careers,
Yes.
giving advice to the students, counseling them. Started back in 2001 as a counselor come front office executive.
Oh.
Yeah.
With
With a certain particular organization, which today is not there. At one point of time, it was Study Overseas Limited UK. I was there for almost 7-8 years before the company was bought by one of the well-known pathway providers around the world.
wasn't that bought by TC first, and
No,
then
it was first bought by Navitas.
okay, and from Navitas you went to TC and
That's right.
okay, Luke.
Luke Jeffers.
Yeah.
Luke Jeffers is the one
And
who
Kamal.
started that. Yes, Kamal used to be there at a late stage. Started in the very same month in this industry.
Very nice.
And
And
eventually-
you were in Delhi?
No, I was always based out of Hyderabad. That's where I've been working from. And then later in 2008, I moved to Edinburgh Napier University. That point of time, it was called just the Napier University. I headed the operations again for recruitment for almost 15-16 years. Based out of Hyderabad. 15 years with Napier. And then got into Middlesex University. Got to see Gurdjieff. Yeah. And it's been a great journey. I mean, earlier I've been talking about an absolute wonderful city called Edinburgh. But most of the times it would be like, okay, from London an hour away by flight. So I said that at some point of time, let me forget about this flight. Let me have my roots there in London and start there in London. So yes, with Middlesex University for past 1.5 years. That's my journey in this industry.
How did you get into the industry? Sheer randomness?
Absolute randomness. Believe me, after completion, the way he thought of going to US and being a typical Hyderabadi, all my classmates after completion of the MBA were taking these GRE exams, and that was the time when you have this IT, management information services. Those are the kind of lines. So I have taken my TOEFL. I have also done GRE, and then I said, let me not just go for a certain intake, let me push it for 6 more months, during which I got a call from a placement consultancy saying that you will be, this certain particular company wants to interview you. And the thing that struck me was a Britisher is going to interview you. I'm not one of those Delhi, Mumbai boys where you get the opportunity to speak to a Britisher. During that time, Hyderabad, you're talking about 2000, 2001, I never had an interaction with a foreigner.
I agree. I can relate to this.
I wanted to test myself whether I will be able to understand this person. Will I be able to answer this person properly? So that was my intention of attending that interview. Well, that's how I came into this. Yeah.
And you're happy about it?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I love this.
Or you're one of those, which most of us are. We have spent 10 years in the industry and you're like, ab main kya hi karunga? You know, is that nothing like that sort of came to your mind that I'm part of the industry, what should I do?
Oh no, never. I like the entire concept of guiding a student. I always felt that they don't get the very correct information. I believe more in the process of counseling rather than I'm not a very salesperson. I'm more a
Consultant?
counselor, you can say. Of course, your role and other things they require, but I definitely put counseling as the first step. Try to give the right guidance to the student. Still followed the same, and you must say Luke is the one who gave this kind of an ethics and all that stuff what to us. Most of us who have traveled with Luke follow pretty much the same thing. And a lot of people have this. They work in Australia. They worked in Australia space. They worked in US space of sending the students as destinations. But strangely, it so happened that whenever a certain particular company that I was working with, they started slowly moving towards Australia. But then I again got into a British university, a Scottish university. Then at some point of time, well, always a bit of a challenge. What a Scottish university used to compete with a London university. So I said, let me have this experience also, and that's how I came in. And well, it's an absolutely great time that I'm having.
Never sleeps. Honestly, it's a passion for him. Never sleeps. Because sometimes I forget what time it is in the UK. You know, because you're just, when you're in the moment, you know how it is. And you just fire off a message. Then I'm like, oh my God, look at the time. Within 2-3 minutes, he's responding. And you're apologizing, sorry.
So you will be glad to know. If you need a 2 a.m., 3 a.m. friend, I'm up.
Oh, perfect.
I'm up. And I love to talk about this space. I guess it's beautiful, right? You can create an impact. You know, you can make money. You can travel.
Yeah.
You know, and this is what I say that, study abroad, and I question whether it's right or wrong. Study abroad or this industry particular. I mean, right? There used to be roti kapra makan. Equivalent to today's Gen Z or probably Alpha. It's about travel, experience, and education. So in the industry you get to know, you get everything. So even if you study abroad and come back, there's a huge space which you can build your career, because you've been there, you have experienced it, and you have genuine, authentic experience to share. So this is for every student or parents who believe that, whether we should go abroad or not. I am a bias, I earn my living out of this. I am biased, but I do question that not everyone should go abroad. It's not meant for everyone. But if you get a chance, grab it, and don't worry, there are scholarships, there are finances, there are means, there are information. I was stupid, because one of my cousins was studying in Middlesex. That's where he got edge over many. He's studying at Middlesex. He studied in London. He did an undergrad there. And he started consulting and ran it for a very long time, very successfully. So there are lots and lots of opportunity, but go for the right intent, right? Professor Martin Board, you've been a dean for business and law, right? Aivin wants to become want to replace you in Middlesex. What should be his journey, different from yours so far? Because today's generation want to achieve everything in 10 years max.
Yeah, I don't think necessarily the journey needs to be different. If I think about when I started, where I am in terms of now, I was an undergraduate degree in a university, and I remember the dean of the university wandering around, knocking on the doors of the classroom saying, "Does anybody in here fancy a career in academia?" Hadn't really crossed my mind. I was going to work in the banking sector. My first degree was a 4-year degree with placement. I worked in Lloyds Bank at the time, had a full 12-month placement, thoroughly enjoyed that. I thought, I want to go into the banking career, go into finance, go into banking, that's what I want to do. And then my dean walked through, said, "Anyone fancy a career in academia?" I thought, I really thought about that in terms of what to do. And that's going back for me now, probably 34 years ago, having that question asked to me. And I thought, yeah, I quite fancy that door that's been opened. Open the door, have a look through. I fancy a different career. Poke my head through that door, applied for the position. And then I was given the opportunity to do my accounting exams. So I think the first bit of advice would be education. You've got your master's degree. For anybody here thinking about what they want to do, so get the grounding of your undergraduate or your master's degree, but then think about if there are professional qualifications that you could do that could help you further in that career. So I then studied my professional accounting exams, became a qualified chartered management accountant, did the work that gave me the letters after my name, and then used that skill then to start to train up other students. And so my first part of my career was then taking that knowledge that I'd learnt and starting teaching the students. And I think if I reflect back on that maybe 30 odd years ago, I never truly understood accounting until I started teaching it. And then you switch from, I've studied exams, I've passed exams, but now I need to help other people understand what this means. And speaking to them, articulating them in a clear and concise way really made the dots join for me in terms of understanding accounting. And then that started to really fuel my passion in accounting. It was more than just I'd undertaken the professional examinations to get the letters, but I could then impart that knowledge to help other people really understand management accounting, cost behaviour, etc. And it became a real exciting part of my career. So I think then in terms of my advice would be do something that has your passion. So don't do something because it seems though you want to be a lawyer, you want to be an accountant, you want to be a manager. It has to be something that you're really going to thoroughly enjoy through life.
But how do you get to know you have a passion? Because see, till time you don't experience it, you will not get to know whether it's passion or whether it's that infatuation.
Yeah.
Right? But if you see the current structure of education, if you induct as let's say into business accounting, right, and you need to commit for a year or like 3 years, at least minimum 1 year.
Yeah.
What if once you get in the class and you get to know, or probably you feel that this is not what I thought, what should then one do?
You try and suggest that you go to an accounting degree and it's not interesting.
Sorry?
You try to suggest that doing an accounting degree might not be interesting. No, I joke.
Yeah, no, I picked some,
I think what if
but it's not interesting.
Oh, it's fantastic.
That's what, because you have spent 34 years, and that's why you're saying it's fantastic.
Yeah, I think you probably have a passion for something. Yeah. So if you want to do accounting,
but how you get to know the passion?
Yeah, I think if you're going to do something in accounting or something in finance, then you've got an interest in numbers. If you're more creative, then you're not going to go into accounting. If you're more thinking about understanding strategy, you're going to go into maybe something in the lawyer or the legal profession. So I think you've probably got a sense of maybe what your parents have been doing. They've been working in accountancy, lawyers, they've had their own business, maybe an entrepreneur, and you want to follow in that footsteps. So, when your children might be, I want to follow in that entrepreneurial spirit. And I think my experience in life was my parents were fairly entrepreneurial. They had their own little businesses, only building firms, but it just created that spark of ideas and working with numbers to try and make the company be a better organisation. So that's what I went into. But your question is relevant because if you dip your toes in the water of business accounting, you think, is this the thing I want to do? The opportunity about going to university is that you're not going straight into a narrow silo. If you go into business accounting or something like that, you can take different study modules. It could be in entrepreneurship, could be in strategy, could be in marketing. You could get involved in clubs and societies in the university. Ivan's been at Middlesex and then got involved with the student union, got involved with entrepreneurial competitions. And you have that, it's a whole series of opportunities. So you don't go into thinking, I'm going to university and therefore I'm going to train to be an accountant and become an accountant. Because the avenues open up, the opportunities open up. I think what university gives a lot of people are lots and lots of choices through life. So you start, we can move in terms of different directions. You can get involved in clubs and societies that are completely different, outside your normal sphere of interest. You just test the waters, see if that interests you. So I think you've got the opportunity then to move around and to do things which really would interest you. And Ivan's testament to that. Now, I've heard of all the things he's been doing, getting the Santander Scholarship, Santander Prize, the entrepreneurial activities, winning the prize for startup businesses, yet doing a finance master's degree. So there's choices. But the critical thing is, for any students, see the choices, but take advantage of those choices because they're there. You're not coming to a university, whether it's in Australia, the US, Canada, UK. You're coming to a place for opportunity. And what we give you is a menu of this is all the choices you've got to choose from. What do you want to take advantage of? And move out of your comfort zone. Do things you haven't tried before. Test, experiment. You're only young once. Take advantage of that complete culture immersion that you've got coming to university in a different world, different part of the world, different society, meeting different people, having different conversations, and open up your mind.
But do you think still with so much of content on YouTube, so much of internship, like entrepreneur like me, I don't care. I mean it. I don't care whether you have studied from IIT or you are studying from Middlesex or Westminster or MIT, right? I see attitude, I see seekingness. Of course, if I'm looking to hire some technicality, then probably I'll check for degree, and that too basic. And more than degree, I will see whether what they have done in the past and what kind of work they have done, right? In this, and most of the companies, startups, even leaders now are not just shortlisting basis degree or course or college, right? Still someone need to go through formal education. Anyone can pick this up.
It's very interesting. We had this conversation yesterday that, see, I think I understand you don't need a degree to be good at a job.
And you've been an entrepreneur, so...
Yeah, so I think you can have the talent, you can have the skill set even without going to a university. But I think the thing about university is the experience, not just what you learn in the classroom. You get to interact with peers, you get to have a bunch of people who are studying the same thing as you. You get to enjoy, have play, have fun. I think that's the holistic development you go to the university for, where, I can maybe sit at home and learn the exact same thing that's teaching me in class, but then I don't get to hang out with 40 other people in the same classroom. I don't get to do all this, the typical university stuff that I get to do only in the university.
But can't you do in internships and move from company to company and get paid versus paying 50,000, 100,000 a pound a year and then look for a job? So I'm an MBA. But if someone asks me, do I regret? No. Because at that point in time, I need that grooming, I need that thappa, I need that that exposure, that experience, right? But if I see, why did I go to MBA, spend fortune? Luckily, I didn't take my loans, and that's why probably I was privileged when to take a risk to start, after my 2-3 years of experience. But I spent lots of money. I was not paid for 2 years. There's opportunity cost, right? So eventually, there's a huge opportunity cost. There are a couple of at least 1 to 2 or 3 years of your life, for Generation Z who believe that at 30 they will die. They need to do everything before 30. They don't think about 70. They want to live for today. Why should I spend 50,000-70,000 pounds, and go through this experience, which I can go through having internships or travel, backpack and travel and do odd jobs, or this is what most of the young Britishers used to do, and they did well. Why international students, especially Indian students, need to go through formal education and spend fortune and then wait to get employed or to start something. If I want to be honest entrepreneurship, or I want to start something, rather than spending 50,000-70,000 pounds, I use that as a seed capital and start my company.
I think it's also about the skills though, all right? And I think that's the key. And I think for us as institutions, it's also about evolving with the times. So for example, in the UK, we've launched our industrial strategy a couple of weeks ago or 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I think higher education institutions will be a fundamental part of delivering that for the UK economy. So I think, look, education, fundamentally, I don't think anyone's going to disagree you need education. Whether it's you're sitting in front of a computer learning, whether you're at kindergarten, whether you've got a teacher telling you how to add up, you need education, right? I think what we have, I'm not entirely sure how the system is in India in certain things, but for example, in the UK, we have different forms, different avenues for students. So I think you need choice. So we have apprenticeships, we have obviously the formal routes, we have people who just learn through the job. And yes, more and more companies are going down sort of the apprenticeship route versus the sort of non-formal route. But fundamentally, degrees are still very valued. So whatever it is, employers, governments, organizations still see value in an individual who has a degree. Now, what I'm saying is, what we're getting now is, we probably had 10, 15, 20 years ago, too many people who only saw value in a degree, or maybe placed overemphasis on a degree. I think nobody would argue, if you're going to be a doctor, we want you to have a degree, yeah? Make sure you've learned, don't cut this thing, because he's not going to wake up, right? We want you to know that. Don't learn that on YouTube and say, I saw that, I know how to do it. That's not going to work, right? So we know that for there's certain things we just need, right? What steel do you need in a building? Listen, go learn that properly somewhere. I don't want this building falling down. There's going to be certain things I don't think you're going to replace, right? So I think what we need is, we need to have options. And I think what we had is previously probably maybe an overemphasis on, you must have a degree. If you're going to work in this organization, we'll only accept somebody with a degree. I don't think that's fair, because what you're not doing is providing access, right? So I think what we've got is probably a slight divergence where we're opening up into other avenues. But if the fundamental question is, does the degree still hold value? I think the numbers will tell you it does.
I think that's true. But you sort of think about, there's lots of people who have been successful in business that don't have a degree.
Yeah,
so you see lots of very successful entrepreneurs. Your question is quite valid. Why do this? Because you're successful using an MBA, but you look across lots of examples of people who have got a very successful business. Richard Branson and Virgin, very successful business, didn't do anything of formal qualification. But you'll probably see underneath that hundreds, if not hundreds of thousands of people who think they can be successful as an entrepreneur and fail. So you'd start off the podcast by thinking about the shortcuts. What can we learn from this? Formal education in whatever you're doing provides the opportunity to have the discourse, have the conversation around, if I try and start my business in this, and I've got this expert over here who's a professor of practice or an entrepreneur in residence, can they give me some advice about where they've fallen over and they pick themselves up again and fallen over again and pick themselves up again, but ultimately have been successful? I think a lot of students think of entrepreneurs as being an entrepreneur equals I'm going to be successful. Being an entrepreneur means you're very good, and you're very good at being resilient. You're very good at picking yourself up after your first business fails, your second business fails, maybe your 20th business fails, but you're still an entrepreneur. And the formal education gives you that opportunity to almost short circuit where those pitfalls are and think about that. And I did I could say, yes, I have my professional qualifications, I have my PhD, I have my undergraduate degree, etc. But I also started my own business in the early 1990s, took advantage of what was available then in terms of free serve and website development to create a little business which grew. And so I've used the skills of my education in a way that's helped me run a successful business, and then grown with employees, nothing of the size you've got here, but still had that exposure to the problems of dealing with all of that, and thinking about, in many times I've used my accountancy knowledge to think about cash flow projections and think about engaging with suppliers, negotiating to make the business as successful as it could have been. But I've pulled on different challenges and different understandings to help me make that business. So I think what I would say in terms of my own journey in that is that the formal education gave me exposure to things I didn't know. It gave me intelligence that I didn't have. It helped me then apply that into the business environment. And if I hadn't gone through that formal education, I would have tried something. It could have cost me a lot of money and failed. But because of the formalised training, I knew some of the things that I was most likely to face in some of the challenges and work around those. So whether it's hedging or leveraging or dealing with factoring or dealing with cash flow management, all those things helped create a business that could survive the financial crisis of 2008, could take advantage of opportunities in the marketplace, have that creative spirit and that drive. I think one of the greatest things I see in most students, whether they're going through education or going through life, is that drive to be the better person they can be. And that's what gives you the momentum to go through in life.
No, I agree. In fact, I learned, or I someone told me, or I read somewhere, education make you, or tell you, or make you learn what to learn.
Yeah.
If you don't know what to learn or how to learn, so then even if you want to learn, but if you don't know how to learn, you will not able to learn.
I think the other thing is, look, your point's right. People are spending this money, and maybe because of the internet and there's more communication, it's easier access to things. People are questioning it more, right? Absolutely, you should be, because you should do that anyway, where you're spending significant sums of money, or your parents' money, or you're borrowing money, and you're thinking about, well, what's my return on investment? But the only thing I'd also say is, though, as students, you also have to think, well, I'm paying this money wherever you study, whether it's at home, abroad, wherever. But do you fully take advantage of what's available to you? It's not just going to class and going to your dorm and then going into central London with your friends or whatever it is people do at the weekends, right, or in the evening. We as institutions across the UK, I'm talking about, millions of pounds a year we invest in our employability services, incubator stuff. There's a whole host of wraparound support. So if actually you are interested in starting a business or X or Y, whatever it is, being part of a club, being part of a society, there's a huge amount that institutions do which is outside of just the actual teaching. And I think what we would do is probably encourage students to just make sure they take advantage of everything it is that universities offer you.
Yeah. And what is why few of the students, not many, still miss this when they spend lots of money. They go, they leave their houses, stay 5,000 miles away, right? And then don't get a job, or they will come and say that it wasn't worth it. There are very few, most of us, I guess we all are a byproduct of being privileged or risk, taking risk enough, to have a calculated risk wherein, okay, if we go to UK, or we be a part of this ecosystem, it will be worth our time, our money and efforts, right? But there are still few, and those few make more noises. Those few been picked by media. Media, everyone is yellow journalism, negative sells. So many, every day I get opportunity or call to give a bite, and they just want to hear why Trump have said this, what will happen, when the visa will open or whatever, because this is what people want to sell, and this is what people negatively sells. We all know, right? Yellow journalism sells, right? But and it's one of the reason I've been doing this podcast is to bring people, right, ask the right question, or absolutely what if I have a 5-year daughter, now I'm saving money for her, let's say, I won't say only education, probably when she's 18, she would get some capital, whether she does her education or a startup or marriage, it's her choice, but still, once she will be taking a decision, she will definitely consult, or I'm assuming she will at least talk to us, right? And I'll ask her the same question, that you have, let's say, 100,000 pounds, why don't you start a startup? Why don't you just get married and be happy, or if you want to, so that for those students and for those parents, I'm asking why people go there with all the aspiration, but still the fact is less people are getting jobs, and then everyone's questioning about employability or ROI.
Yeah, but I think to answer that question, it's a two-way street here. So universities can offer the opportunities, but the students have got to take advantage of the opportunities. So, in my experience, I do see a lot of students every year. Only last week we had graduation at Middlesex University, shaking the hands of every student who's graduating from the Faculty of Business Law. And the sense of pride on those students' faces was immense, really, really positive. However, there are probably a number of students who come to university to consume the education and not to engage in the education. And what I mean by that is that they think by turning up to the classroom or not turning up to the classroom, by being in London but not attending regularly the university, that they're going to be the best person they can be. They're going to fall on their feet, a job's going to be created for them, and they're going to be successful in life. That doesn't happen. You know, from the people that you employ, you look out there to your staff, you want people who can demonstrate they've got commitment, they've got drive, they've got enthusiasm, they've got tenacity, they've got the skills you're looking for. And that's the same when a student goes to university. They've got to demonstrate those skills. They've got to build those skills and let them emerge from their inner self. If you're a very shy person, you have the ability to break out of that shell. I've had, in one of my previous institutions I worked at, I remember a first year student who was coming from an international location to us, very, very shy, would not say anything to anybody. But he got involved with a group of friends at the university, and then he started working with them on some ideas, asking questions about why do businesses work this, or how can we solve certain problems. And he created an app that then sat on the wing mirrors of buses that pointed down at the ground. Because when he was coming to university, the bus would go along and it'd fall down a pothole or the tyre would burst. And he created this app with a bit of AI that tracked the road, the quality of the road, and it was able to detect where the potholes were. And through that AI app, he was able to determine the depth and the severity of that app, send the information through to the local council so they could come out and rank order the potholes to solve that problem. And that was just a great spark idea. And then that person then became involved in presenting his business idea and came out of his shell. And he wouldn't have had that opportunity had he not had the chance to speak with 3 or 4 other people that came together. So he was great in terms of that skill, but somebody else in terms of the other skill, maybe techie over there, etc., and bringing those people together to make the best person they could be. Or he could have sat inside his little shell, been a very quiet, meek and mild person, consumed the education, and had done nothing in life. So you've got to come to the party. You've got to say, okay, I know what I want to do. I don't know what I want to do. I want to see what is the opportunities. I want to see what the exposure is. But be prepared to break out of that shell. First of all, you're traveling halfway across the world to the UK. You're landing at Heathrow Airport. You don't know how to use the public transport to get to London. You go to London, you're in a accommodation. You've used your services to try and find that accommodation, but it's new, it's unique. You go into university, you're seeing people you haven't seen before. You've got to break ice with them. These are all life skills which you're creating that suddenly makes you a very different person than if you stayed in Delhi or you stayed wherever you are in the world and you stayed just in that solo, isolated part of education. Be prepared to go somewhere where you haven't been before, personally, geographically, and just take advantage of what life has to offer for you.
No, agree, totally agree. In fact, thank you for pointing this out. And this is what I tell everyone, that it's not about education, it's a holistic experience.
Yeah.
It's just not about London or US or Delhi. It's about, you need to be proactive. In fact, one thing which I really like about UK universities or any international universities, they don't tell that come, we'll get you a placement. It's happened in India. You recruit students telling that, if you study in my institute, you will get this much of package. But good thing, at least Indian universities are very clear. You put this much of money, you will expect this kind of range. International universities never say that you will get a job.
Nice.
So this is where I want to tell every student and every parent that you're not sending a student to get a job or to settle. The intent should be very clear. There's a global mobility through immigration and there's a global mobility through education. Mm-hmm. If you go through education, don't expect a job. But if you are good at it, if you are building your skills, if you are proactive, you're not shying away. You can be student union. You can experiment with anything. You can join clubs. You can read business with law.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for that diverse experience, definitely international education is for you. If you want to be in your comfort zone, if you want to spend let's say 20,000 pounds and you want to have a job of 3, 4, 5,000 pounds, it's a great thing. Another thing which I was reading or probably someone told, it's a broader wisdom, that education, the ROI should not be within 2 years. ROI education is the investment for life. How can you say ROI even in stock market? You don't get ROI within 2 years. So even from financially, probably your accounting skill rubbing. So even if you are take a pure financial comparison, no investment will give you ROI within 2-3 years.
But I think you should also think about, if you think about return on investment, the danger is we think about just in terms of monetary return on investment. You've got to invest yourself in this as well. It's not investing money. Invest money equals success. It's invest money, invest me as a person, invest my time to do the things I want to do. I recall speaking to parents and they were saying, my child's going to come to your university. You say you offer a degree with a placement. How successful is it going to be for my son or my daughter to get a job? And I said to them, I can never promise that. And they said, why? I said, because your son or your daughter has to be interviewed and they have to get the job. And then you look at, okay, so what can we as a university package around that? We do that. So provide you with, how do you write your CV? If you want to start to applying for jobs, don't use the same CV for every job you apply for. It's got to be tailored for different types of jobs. And they've got to build up confidence in your interview techniques. So, you put a student at 18, 19, 20 coming from India going for their first job interview, they could be as nervous as anything. So we put in practice interview techniques. We put in practice assessment centres. All these things to build confidence. So when you go for that first interview, maybe Ivan go for his first job interview, he is a confident individual, not only because he's gone through the practice of doing these things with the skills and the experienced staff around him in terms of MDX works at Middlesex, but also because we've created that confident individual self that can promote yourself. And so that investment, that return on your investment is you've invested in yourself, you become much more confident, you've invested in your education, and then you become an ambassador of the university and you become an employable citizen.
And this is what
That looks
True.
like.
Yeah.
Absolutely example of it.
So, and it's not AI generated,
it's not AI.
real person. Exactly what you mentioned. Yeah, it's not AI driven, right?
No, he's not AI, he's a real person.
But for audience who are seeing him on video, how you prove yourself you're not AI generated?
That's actually tough considering the new how far
how far
away
we've reached.
Yeah, so I think it's really difficult. I think if I drink some water, does it help?
Yeah, I don't know. There was a
maybe,
clip
if I go
wherein
there.
the
AI would have got it
model is
correct.
getting better. I remember Will Smith eating noodles and it went all. Even that is so. Guldeep, you've been managing global partnerships, for Middlesex, right? And it might be perception. It might be the way you have positioned yourself. The moment whenever I heard about Middlesex or read about Middlesex, it's all about Middlesex is very global. You have a campus in Dubai. We have a great presence in India, right? It got a very strong brand positioning. How did you achieve that, or it happened over a period of time organically? But I also believe nothing happened organically. So you've been with Middlesex for a while, it seems.
Yeah, so I would be in Middlesex 8 years this September. But in terms of what you just articulated there, in all honesty, I think that was a conscious decision by the institution going back probably 20 years. So I think we were one of the first to open an office in India itself, in Delhi. As you said, we've got our London campus, we've got a Dubai campus, we've got a Mauritius campus. We've got a joint institute in China, in Hainan province. And we also have numerous global partnerships also. So I think from us, for our perspective, the idea of being global is something that's been sort of ingrained within the fabric of the institution for well over 20 years. And even from our recruitment efforts, we have pretty much all of our staff is overseas. So if I think about it now in the UK, I have no student recruitment staff based in the UK. We want them to be in the countries where they're recruiting students from, talking to them, being on the ground, talking to colleagues like yourself, talking to our partners here, so that you can get a real understanding. And then that also helps the institution because you're really understanding what's happening in your local markets. And remember, we talk about international students. Even if you take India itself, India is just not India, right? It's north, it's south, we've got a number of micro markets within one market. Africa's the same, China's the same, etc. So what that does help us do is just to understand, the different priorities students have. So are students looking for more of an experience? Do they need something that's more cost effective? Do they need to be closer to London? What sort of programs do Ashwini Bhai is always telling me, students from these areas prefer these types of programs, students from these areas so that in itself helps you build your knowledge, and how also you talk to students, but then also best support them when they get to the UK. Only by understanding your student can you support them. If you just say, I'm going to support my students, you've got to understand what their needs are, and then go from there.
And how are you supporting them?
We do lots of things. We've got, in fact, one of the best things we get from word of mouth is the pastoral care that we offer to our students. You can ask any student, right? I'm that confident. How good did Middlesex look after you? Zero issue. You go to our main library building, for example. We've got our uni help, right? So you go to there, one place. Any issue you've got, they'll help you, or they'll point you in the right direction. So you need to make it as easy as possible. We have dedicated staff that will help. So, for example, an Indian student liaison officer, we have a Chinese student liaison officer. If we have certain groups of students, we identify a need and we make sure we address it, working with Students' Union, right? Very, very active, doing loads of work with our students, clubs, societies, but more than that as well on the support side of things, particularly in recent years on just the general well-being of students, on the mental health side of things, not just the physical health, etc. So I think we do huge amounts of work to support the students to make sure they're as comfortable.
What about accommodation? Yeah. Sorry.
No, I was going to say something. What you get is, there's a danger here. The people listening to this think, but that's just, our director of global MDX just telling us a story about what they have to offer. Look at UniCompare. UniCompare, Middlesex University ranked number 1 in 2025. Look at What Uni 2025, Silver Award. These are awards that we've received from Middlesex University from the student's voice. Yeah. So it's not us saying this. You can look at league tables and say, UniCompare, number 1, What Uni, Silver Award. These are the students telling the world their experience, which then backs up what Gurdeep is saying.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm voice of student. I'm still young. I'm telling you I'm 40, but how I define myself, I define I'm 20 with 20 years experience. And all the mistake I happened when I went to study. I want to ensure that my nephews and my nieces and my friends don't commit that, right? I was asking you talk about pastoral care, right, and all the student union. What about accommodation? I'm an accommodation expert, right? This is how I make money. This is how I'm able to do all this. Lots of great companies are helping students with their admission, right? I happen to didn't get, and my accelerator, my Twitter handle is Mr. Accelerator CEO, right? Still, accommodation is one broken piece. Even it's been like 14 years I've been category creator. 9 years I'm building university living. Lots of universities supporting, lots of education partners supporting. But still, I'm not able to accommodate all. Even if we get 8 million visitors, out of which let's say millions of students for UK, I'm not able to accommodate all. Right? How university is supporting accommodation, and as a student, probably any one of you can start. And then probably I would like, what do you do?
So for us, I stayed in the university accommodation. So that was, again, a slightly seamless experience for me because...
every student get university halls?
No. I think the number of spaces in university accommodation is limited. I think that's the same across UK.
It's 1 on 6. Like 16-70% stay on campus. Yeah. Around 20-30% stay like PBSA, organized accommodation. Around 60% stay in unorganized accommodation like private apartments, BTR, HMOs, homestay, right? First of all, how did you get accommodation in university halls if you have gone for undergrad or if you have gone for postgrad? Because platform like us, generally tell students that if you are postgrad, you will not be guaranteed accommodation or at least have a fallback option. Is that the right pitch from us, or are we mis-selling or panic selling?
No, it's the undergraduates who are given, especially international undergraduates are given guaranteed accommodation. Yeah, provided they decide to make a proper application in time and all that stuff. Of course, postgraduate, it's not guaranteed, but good number of students, well ahead of time, they make the applications and then see that they're over there. Certain number of them.
But how did you know you need to apply early?
No, so Okay, I'll
Your
tell you.
cousin studied.
Apart from all that, I think one understanding is it's not just first year undergrads. They give for first year student. So for me, I'm technically a first year student to the university. So being an international student, I get that preference because obviously doesn't matter if I go if I'm doing masters, that means I have more experience in life. But then that doesn't mean I am also getting out of my comfort zone. So I think the university understands that, and then they classify as a first year student rather than just, of course, undergrads are given a more preference. But then since I'm a first year student coming there, so they give.
But when did you apply for your accommodation?
Again, I was not very early into it. Maybe I think in the month of June is when I applied. But then I was again very fortunate because the hall which I chose had an opening.
Some cancellation.
And I think again the university takes a conscious decision to have some percentage of the beds allocated for first year master students, especially international students.
So you got lucky.
Yeah.
No, sorry. Yeah, I was just going to say. So actually, the way I don't know how other institutions work. Obviously, so I've just gone through this process with. So our colleagues that manage the sort of university managed accommodation, shall we say, that's the halls that we're talking about. They actually liaise with all of our regional teams and say, what is your expectation for place requirement for the following year? So we actually have it's not just you apply, there's no space, right? So what they actually do is they speak to the teams. The teams are on the ground here, right? So they have a very good understanding of what sort of capacity they think they're going to need. And based on that, in fact, we just closed it last week. Based on that, those many rooms are held for international students.
Makes sense.
Middlesex.
Makes sense. So what I'm saying is, as you mentioned, you got lucky, but the lucky was being organized. At the same time, I'm happy to be challenged. Because we were talking back camera that we all are student first. I'm like, we have to be student first. I get my food on table if I able to help student. Otherwise, that's not a food I want to eat because that's not ethically correct, right? But when I say that, only 1 out of 6 students get university halls, is that incorrect?
No, is
that correct?
That's right. Because I think universities again provide really limited space.
Yeah. And when I say around 15 to 20% stay in on halls, around 30 to 40% off-campus student housing, and then 50 to 60% stay on unorganized market.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
I would suspect so. I mean, I don't know numbers off the top of my head, but I think it also varies market by market.
Yeah.
So
mostly,
Indian student behavior may be slightly different to Chinese student behavior versus sort of African student.
But
behavior.
right, and why I'm asking it, I want to see. We know, of course, we are a marketplace. We are a student expert or post-admission expert. If I say it, probably people say I have a vested interest. I do have a vested interest, but we don't want to. We are here to facilitate. We are here to give the right information. Then you can take informed decision. Then we are also saying, what is the ideal if you want to advise to your cousin or your younger brother who want to start apply to Middlesex or any institute in UK or in London? How should their perfect journey should look like? Because in hindsight, we all know it. But when you're going to first time, in fact, jokingly I say accommodation like a cancer. Everyone thinks they will not have it. They should not have it, God forbid. But if they have it, then it's too late. And this is what I say that please apply early. From last 10 years I've been shouting on the rooftop, attending IT3s and do podcasts and all. Now people, I was so bloody happy. I was in British Council pre-departure a couple of days back. And when I asked this question, around 70% have booked their accommodation in first week of July, which is not bad. Because when I started 10 years back, in August, people used to call us. So they started August made. And I don't blame them. First, education counselors don't talk about accommodation, because they feel, now it's been getting corrected, but they feel that if they talk about accommodation and students will get to know the price point, they're like, oh, why we might not go to London. They have some kind of scare, which now they are sorted because they are pragmatic like us and people have information and all. We also able to convince them that if you don't tell them early, your efforts might go waste later, and the earlier you tell, the better they manage their finances and the better they have a visa process. It's win for everyone. Student, get better price point, they have more options, their visas are on track. Is that the right message to the students?
Without question.
Yeah.
100%. We look. We don't want the student to have any negative surprises when they get to the UK. We do not want our students to be stressed or worried, as particularly as something as fundamental as where am I going to live, how much is it going to cost me. That's just not okay.
Yeah.
Right? We where am I going to study? Where am I going to live? I mean, I'm going through this at the moment with my daughter. She's studying in the UK, and our process has been, where do you want to study? Here. Okay, where are you going to live? Okay, then my process is when she goes to bed, right? How much is that going to cost me? Right? Yeah. So, but my point is that that's not something we want to worry about when she lands.
Yeah.
For that to be a huge surprise. So for me as a parent, that would be concerning. But just imagine being a student and getting to very close to arriving, and all of a sudden you get this surprise. So you're absolutely correct. We need this information front and center, right up front, because as you say, because it then helps you manage your finances, organize yourself. Do I want to be in student halls? Do I want to be in a PBSA? Do I want to be in a house share? Yeah. You have options.
Yeah, at least you should be knowing this, you know.
And you should know your options. And that's what you guys are providing, and that's what students need.
Yeah. No, absolutely. 100% with that. I mean, when my son went to university, it was exactly that. Which university are we settling on? And then the second most important question is that where are you going to live? Because you want to be in a safe and secure environment. You want to know that when they go to sleep, they're going to be it's going to be clean. They're going to have the ability to do some cooking, or at least to warm something up in the microwave if you're not a cook or you don't intend to be a chef. I remember the first time I went away to university. How do you cook a chicken? I have no idea how you cook a chicken. You know, it was a case of now it's 2 minutes in the microwave and away you go. But it's these. We call them the shelter goods, don't we? Yeah. Hierarchy of needs. It's the basic.
10 or 15 years back, if you see, at least 10 years back, students used to just rely on the prospectus. The websites would say a little about it. You don't have the best of an idea where it would be guided to a student saying that, well, once you reach over there, the university is going to have halls of residence. Of course, for which people would have applied pretty early. But if they haven't, then you need to go through private accommodation, for which again university has got a list of those landlords who have been paying proper taxes and kept everything very properly, who register with the universities. You have this particular thing. Otherwise, you have the private organizations over there, kind of a thing. Yeah. And the number of students who were going also were less. Yeah. So the cities would cater to those students who are going there.
Right.
But now, as the number of students have gone up drastically, and a lot of cities have started having this housing issues, there is a lot of information, and organizations like yourselves, students are a lot well prepared. They are looking for the options in the months of that May, June, or maybe before that. If at all they have decided on a university by April, they would definitely immediately look into the accommodation. If you see the entire trends, 10 years back, a lot of people would go take the decision in June, July, particularly for UK. US was a different market at that point of time. But if you see UK, nowadays a lot of kids do take that decision by April, May. So they do have that time to take a decision on accommodation while they are here. Yeah. So, and that's for sure what they are getting in the media, internet, all these things have facilitated, and people are, of course, in the right hands like you, where you say that you have got inventory of almost a million,
2 million globally, and around short to near to around 1 million in UK and Ireland. And so we were talking about so I mean, generally we don't implant sponsors, but now we have a sponsor, and very carefully chosen, because again, as I mentioned, I want to keep this podcast as authentic. Even one of the reasons probably people are loving it is, even the guests are coming, I'm not putting them on the spot or a pedestal. I will try to put you guys on the spot, so I would like to give a shout out, to our sponsor called Vita Students, which is just not, as you mentioned, what if, when I went, what if not only there are duvets and pillows, there are studios wherein people can have their own washroom, they have their own kitchenette, they can cook. Probably they can become they can prepare 7-course meals. So they have all the fancy, I wouldn't say fancy, like it's needed, right? You have your dishwashers, and you have your fancy microwaves and whatnot, and they also serve breakfast. And that is in fact, your daughter is going to Bristol. I would definitely recommend you to explore that. It's I call them value for money. Getting a breakfast in the morning.
absolutely.
You can either you should not miss your breakfast or classes. I have done a lot. I'm sure you will agree to it. So that is one, and it's just not like now students are not looking at walls. They are looking for. They are very very smart. They know if they are spending 40,000-50,000 on fees. They want to have accommodation which define them, where they belong, where they have opportunity to interact, have diverse set of students around. Because, and this I firmly believe, you don't get your soulmates and your founders on only in classes. In fact, you find them, but your strength, your relation get deepened with where you stay, with whom you stay. So on that note, thank you, Vita Student, so much for for sponsoring this. And we talk about accommodation. We talk about what does student union does, like
So basically, student union.
it give you power.
Yeah. So
You
what
like the power.
happens-
You like the power,
Of course, who doesn't like?
but with power can get accountability.
Yeah,
and
responsibility.
Responsibility.
Yeah.
So
I think again, it's a learning curve. When you get power, you also learn to be more accountable and
so
responsible.
what kind of power? You can throw someone out of the class or out of the.
No. So we actually have a power to do better. That is, we have become the voice of the students. So basically, we become a medium where between the student body and the university to ensure that if the university is doing something that benefits the students, we applaud them. But then if it's doing something that is not favored by the student, we kind of act like the strict teacher on why you're doing it and how is it benefiting. So we ask those hard questions, and we try to ensure that apart from academics, students have a holistic development in the university. So we do events and activities that tries to bring students together, make sure they interact with each other, try to make it more culturally diverse and inclusive at the same time, and then just make sure there are more avenues for the students to explore opportunities in the university and even maybe in the city. Like we are based in London. So first we look at how students get to make the most out, as he said, make the most out of the university. Then second, to make the most out of London. And third, then make the most out of UK. Like there are so many opportunities out there. You are not limited to just your classrooms or the university. So we try to do that. And we try to help, like we try to ensure that no student feels he's alone or he or she is alone, wherever they are. We try to make sure if they need any sort of help, be it personal or even with the university, we are there for them, and just to make sure that they get through.
And how can one register to student unions? And
So in our university, you're automatically registered to the students' union, and I think it's part of how the education bill and the entire education system is in the UK. So it's again a free service that we provide for the
so
students.
if you are a part of Middlesex,
You
you are part of the
automatically
student
become
union, and then they can
student.
reach out to you.
Yeah.
And you can help voice their concerns or any even any suggestion or something. Are you guys also? So we support organization like NISAO and INSA in UK.
Okay.
Are you part of
No, so we students union, we are not part of INSA UK,
but
then you have
also INSA and
societies.
NISAO, they have like probably integrated to the bigger student unions or on a national level.
No, so we have something called as the NUS, which we are part of. That's the national body, students union body. But then INSA is a separate organization. We have societies within our students union who are part of INSA, such organizations. Like INSA.
So they can be parallel unions.
No, for a university you can only have one students union. You can have multiple societies under.
Yeah. Okay. The societies can be. Okay.
Yeah.
So societies again fall under the students union. So we are the governing body for societies. So we actually have the framework within which they operate, so that it's essential that one society does not affect the freedom of another society or other students. So we provide the framework and also act as a catalyst on how the societies function
Got you.
and how they can get
And
better.
then we have a UK-wide body
Yeah.
called the National Union of Students, which you guys are all members of, right?
That's
Right,
the
yeah.
NUS.
Got your point. So, let me take this opportunity. We have heavyweights and stalwarts of study abroad industry, right? How UK government thinking currently?
How so?
How UK government is thinking currently? Well, off lately, I know UK been holding up well compared to any other destination at this point in time, but the numbers have fallen from 170,000 to 100,000, which is still a lots, right? And then from 24 months, it have came to 18 months. That there are some pockets of students and parents who are like, we don't know whether they will make it from 18 to 12 months or probably get away with postgrad scheme. So how is UK thinking currently?
So I think we need to differentiate between what is happening and what might be happening.
Yes.
So yes, there is conversations taking place in UK government about the 24 months to 18 months, but it's not crystallised yet, not yet. I think also the big picture about immigration, total immigration to the UK, is wrapped up amongst natural immigration taking lower paid jobs in the National Health Service, in care, in other positions, and international students are wrapped up in that same conversation. And that's really unfortunate because as a lobbying body, I'm a member of the Chartered Association of Business Schools. We've been lobbying UK government about the value of international students to the UK economy generally. And this is not just to the UK, it'll be the same argument in the US, same argument in Australia, Canada, across the globe. International students add value to our economy, not just because of the fees and what they do, but in terms of the value added to the economy and the intellect of the economy as well. A lot of our students are re-employed if you are a tier 2 visa employer, and they can then stay in country and for working. What we need to ensure is that the dialogue around immigration is not confused with international students coming into the UK. And so there is I think there is an unfortunate discourse that takes place that makes it sound as though the UK is not welcoming for international students. That is simply not the case. I hear the same narrative in Australia. I think in Australia it's probably wrapped around because the housing bubble in Australia is such that the local population are being priced out of the housing market, and so the Australian government is taking decisions which is restricting international students to try to support the housing availability. And so they're taking decisions which are affecting the higher education sector to deal with another part of the sector of the Australian economy. In the UK, it's just a political, unfortunate hot potato. That the general public is concerned about immigration. The general public is very supportive of international students.
Yeah.
The polls indicate that it's not immigration. There's a challenge over immigration in terms of people coming to the UK to take low-paid jobs, but the same or the different polls taking place in the UK are seeing value in what international students bring to not just universities, but the whole of the UK economy. So it's unfortunate those two arguments get wrapped up in the same,
See,
and they're not the same.
my point is, and that anyone can, answer it. We all know, because we have a Westminster, we are part of the ecosystem. We will, even if we want to be true, we are so biased, because we have been reading and been told and trained this way that international student being valued in UK or any country. We all know that there will be a segment who will be well educated, who will say, yes, we need international students because they are sponsoring 3 British students. If you see that, because one international student or Indian student paying 3 or 4 times the local domestic student, right? But still, why international students is still a soft target? Why they are part of immigration? They should not part of your net immigration, right? 42 billion?
I think
42 billion is what?
It's a fair point, right? Whether they should be part of the net migration stats, probably a lot of people would argue they shouldn't be, right? But I think, look, with governments, whichever government you look at, and government policies, I think we also have to look. I always feel you need to look at the other side of the argument.
I agree.
What they probably do have to do, and I would do if I was in government, is make sure there's no abuse of the system.
Yes.
And make sure also
Totally.
the students themselves are not being misled, misinformed, And I think you do have to address that, and I think we do have to acknowledge, I think, as an industry, look, as we were talking off camera, there's a lot of people in this ecosystem who financially have done very well.
Yeah.
If we all sat here now and said every single one of them operates completely ethically, completely 100% honest, student first, it's not true.
Yeah.
Right? So I think as government, what you would have to do is say, okay, look, of course we want international students, why wouldn't you? There's not a person on the planet, doesn't matter who you are, that would say no to 40 billion or 42 billion, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
But what you would say is, I don't want people who are being misinformed, not being told the truth, being promised a dream that doesn't exist, or it's just a backdoor way to immigration, right? Which nobody wants that. You don't want that, I don't want that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that doesn't work. So I think what we don't have is a government that is maybe like some around the world, knee-jerk, I don't want any more Indians, stop, because, you know, I'm going to use that as leverage for something else.
Yeah.
We don't have that. What we have is an understanding that international students contribute significantly to our economy. They're going to be a part of our growth going forward, and they always will be. But what we do have is also a responsibility to make sure that our systems aren't abused. And I think, and I hope that that's where we're getting to. So one of the arguments on the proposal of 24 months to 18 months, etc., it may be that if somebody spent all this money, but then they're still only working in a minimum wage type job, is that a good thing?
Yeah.
I'm not saying yes or no either way. I'm just saying it's a conversation that does have to be had.
Government, if you see particularly the white paper, in a way it's asking the students to give more try for graduate jobs rather than go for absolute those menial jobs. They are kind of bringing a bit more of an urgency by proposing this 24 months to 18 months, saying that you need to think of these graduate jobs a lot more quick rather than leave it for some additional time. People were talking about a threshold of minimum wages going up. I would say the last time it went up was in 2012 and 13. For more than a decade, the inflation has been going up. I would say a student has been exploited all this time that they haven't really raised it.
Yeah.
In a way, government raising it is actually beneficial for the student. They just are saying, be true to your degree that you have come here for. Be there in classes, get a good degree, give a good shot for your graduate employment. And the way it has been all laid down is like graduate jobs are not that difficult actually. If you observe, take such a huge country like India, and you Google out and check out how many registered corporate firms are there in India. Not corporate, how registered firms are there in India. You'll be surprised to see that in a country like UK, which is not, it's as big as some small states of India. The number of registered organizations are almost double to that of India. In India, you've got 2.8 million of these, whereas in UK, it's almost around 5.4 million or something.
But the on the ground reality, when you are talking to students, we are talking to students, still, they are questioning that. Okay, so I got one of my friend who called me up. He's 37 years old. He's working in one of the IT company in India, earning 20 lakhs, and he's an RPA, robotic process automation, right? And he called me that Saurabh, I got admission in one of the university in UK, good university, right? And it will cost me around 40 lakhs, around 40,000 pounds. Should I go? Should I not go? How will you take this question? And then I share what I share.
I think there's a number of factors there, right? How long has he been working? What is his career perspective? Has he been stuck on 20 lakhs for 10 years? Has he been stuck in the same job for 10 years? Has he taken, as Martin said earlier?
India, if you have a school of 10 years, 20 lakhs is not a bad amount.
No, obviously it's a great. That's what I mean. It's a great salary, right?
Ground reality.
But I'm thinking about your friend's own progression. Has he done professional certifications along the
Yes,
way?
he did IIT certificate in this AI update. From IIT he did that. See, anyone who is working, first aim is let me upgrade through these online degrees and all that. Right? He did it from IIT, some course into AI tools or advancement. It didn't increase his salary or right? He's doing a good job, RP, and he's designing AI automations for a few, which is still a skill job, right? I'm like, I asked the same thing. Are you married? Do we have any liabilities, or at least anyone to take care? So he's like, my parents are staying with me. So my ROI. If I talk about ROI for him, when I talk, he might take decision otherwise, but it was not. It was not summing up. If we take a loan of 50 lakhs, right? Then he will let go at least 2 years of his current salary. So that is almost 90 lakhs of opportunity cost. If he comes back, if he gets a job there, 40,000, 45,000, right? Still feel. If he doesn't, and let's say first scenario doesn't, he come back, will his job gonna increase from 20 to 30? Chances are less. And it's basically we don't know what AI gonna happen. Even right now we're creating jobs to eliminate other people, but in a way, if we don't upgrade or he be really not good at it, probably his job might not be there for next 2 years.
Let me tell you, I'll answer that. I think he should take that.
Okay.
The reason is he already has given certain shots out here. He is not able to further grow. You yourself are saying that there is no guarantee that he is going to become 20 to 30 lakhs kind of a thing. He has a good backing of 10 years work experience. Probably in last 10 years, he has been still hanging on to India and is not trying for opportunities outside, because somewhere his Indian degree is really not taking him outside of India.
But after 10 years of experience, degree matters.
Definitely matters.
Even
A British degree at this stage is going to make his CV a lot more saleable than what it is today. And also you can weigh whether you want to do a £40,000 university fees. Probably you might get a similar subject at Middlesex University for £18,000. Yeah. Then the ROI is going to change.
I'll with him.
Yeah.
If he gets to give my commission.
Yeah. Definitely.
If not, and he's going to one of the Scottish universities.
Yeah. I think
is your bias speaking?
No, not at all. I still feel. I would not say do it only in Middlesex. You could probably do it.
I'm talking about UK. What are the UK?
Yeah, anywhere.
Yes,
the
I asked
ROI
him why
point is-
UK. He said because it will have 1 year. So
Absolutely.
at least that it was not 90. It was probably 70 lakhs of opportunity cost.
Yeah.
So I got sold. Okay, 1 year. Okay, so you're not going 2 years. Okay.
Yeah.
Will you want to settle there? Yes, why not? If I get a good job, I take my parents along, or at least I'll need to take care. And he's the one who is he's only child, or he's only son who need to take care of their parents, not only for 1 year, and he also need to take care of him. So that means he need to earn £1,000 a month, right? Now tell me, if you're going for advanced software or advanced IT, one of these advanced computer software course.
Yeah.
If he done his study, then it will be hard for him to take care of his expenses and his kids and his parents' expenses. And if he do the part time and all that, then again the purpose of going to upgrade himself will be question.
See, he basically asked this question to you because he wants to give that shot in the very first place.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, he's very true to give that particular shot. Because he clearly says that I am a bit stagnant. I want my CV, my profile to be viewed by people around the world. And again, in our entire conversations with most of the UK students, what people think that a British degree, you have to work in UK. That is not the boundary there. A British degree can take you to Alaska, to Auckland. Okay, go anywhere, it's going to be.
Good point.
For that matter, go to Hamburg.
Good point.
Okay,
It will
go
increase
to
your
Honduras
horizon.
also. You might actually get, if in case you are going to end up being one of the chief information officer in a smaller country in South America also, you might be paid pretty high because that's a very big role that one is
You're
getting.
saying it will open the horizon.
Absolutely, and that is what is the great system of British education. And compared to certain other particular countries, the way the courses are defined, they are very, very structured. Okay, unlike certain particular countries where it's so much of a credit system that you can easily change the course as and when you progress, collect those 180 credits, and eventually get the degree, which probably you have done in the last trimester of the course. But that's not the case with British education. It advises you to take up a certain course and complete. So you're getting in depth into that particular course. So that knowledge that you gain is going to be well recognized. The rankings of the universities. It's like if you see, almost 140 universities are in top 8%. Not even, I would not even say top 10% of the world. Top 8% of the universities. Most of the universities are there in the top 8% of the world. So definitely it's worth a shot. Yeah, you have to decide whether it is like a 40, whether it is like a 20, because you have this width and breadth of from £15,000 to £35,000 to £40,000.
So my question will be, how one see Russell Group versus modern university and London versus outside London, because your fees might be 18 lakhs, but your expenses will be 20-25 lakhs. You go to Scotland or Newcastle or any one of these universities, your fees might be like Russell Group, and your net it will be more or less same. So how one choose?
Okay, fine. You're talking about the jobs part of it. I mean the career at the end of the day, because ROI is the.
I'm agreed that okay, I need to go to UK.
Yeah.
I want to do I need to do a 1 year MBA or a master's.
Yeah.
Now should I go for Russell Group or modern university? London, outside London.
Yeah. I would say, see, ROI, if you manage to crack the job on the same day through a Russell Group or through a Post 92, ROI will be better on Post 92. That's one. Two, is it London or outside London? Well, if you take the tier 2 employing companies, I would say almost 35 to 40% of the organizations which have got licenses to sponsor a foreigner from UK's perspective, are based out of in and around London, okay, which amounts to almost around 40,000 of those companies. Okay, let's assume that few of them are not active. Okay, still you will say £35,000. See which is the second largest city having these kind of an employers who can give you. Okay, should we take the name or not? If we take, it is Birmingham.
Yeah.
Almost 3,300 employers. Where is 40,000? Where is 3,300? So the chances, law of probability
but
says
also 40% higher cost.
the minimum wage per hour what you
Same.
earn there in London on any given day is bit more than what you get the other. I would say
So
you earn more,
we do
you
this
spend
panel,
more.
When we do the panel ones, we have Russell Group and outside London university, because right now, I mean, I don't want to back for either.
Absolutely.
But I love your passion. Gudeep, you have born in UK.
Yep.
But your roots are still in India.
Yep.
Right. When a student come from India, especially let's say I know for some reason in fact both of you come from a state which primarily not been looked very very positively for international students.
Absolutely, yeah.
First of all, why there's a love for Telugu and AP and Telangana to go abroad, and especially US, and similarly we all know the love for Canada, from Punjab, which have probably reduced a bit. Why? First of all, why? Because we might say that whatever our regions are, but I believe everyone is very smart. They know their capitalism back of their hand. They know everything in their story. They're hero, and they have the logics, right? But still, why does that love from Punjab and Telangana, even Kerala? I mean, I guess you got the right. It's like, where is love coming from?
I think from what I can see from the Punjab side of things is that obviously for a number of years, if I look at my own family, my grandfather came to the UK in the 50s. So that's, then my dad moved over when he was 7 years old. So I think you've had a long history of migrations actually from the state of Punjab, not just to the UK but to Canada, to the US, and I guess over those years, people would, I guess, if I'm being honest, probably, when the people that had migrated west, they would go back to India and, they've purchased land, built houses, etc., built up the areas, and then you almost create a desire there within the area that, actually, if, that it seems like that's a good thing to do is to go out to another country.
You speak Punjabi?
I speak Punjabi, yes.
यार पंजाबी बात करते हैं.
चलो पंजाबी च कर लो भी.
मतलब मैं सुन लूँगा बोल.
But your audience may not.
No,
so
they
it may
are, my audience, and we have.
I'll mix it in. I'll mix it
technology
in.
we have. Yeah. I mean,
Oh,
I'm not putting on the spot.
No. I can do it. It's no problem. It's just no one else would understand. But I can do it. It's no
because there is subtitles.
अच्छा, I mean, look, इतना है भी बच्चे होना आजकल सोचते हैं पे आप बाहर जाइए, पैसे कमाइए, तो उत्थे फिर सेटल हो जाइए, पे लाइफ उधर चंगी है. I think there's a perception that life is just better outside of India, and I think I'm not convinced that's correct, because in the same breath you get these kids that then come out and they say we just didn't realize how hard it is, right? So suddenly life did not mokadini, like from the minute you wake up to the minute you go to bed. It's not like in India here when and I guess it's on I come on holiday at times as well, but genuinely at times in India I don't know what day it is, right? When I don't know what day it is,
you're on travel.
right? You're on travel mode, but I think
and you're spending 1 to 100 of
Yeah.
the week, so any which ways, you
exactly. But I think it comes back to your earlier point actually about intent. So when I drive around Punjab, every other advert is for migration. Every other advert is for migration, right? Then unfortunately what that will create is almost a sub-industry where your motivation is, if I walk into an agent's office and say, I need to get the best possible education I can to enable me to have a good future as possible, right? That's one. I suspect there's another one who comes in and says, where can I migrate to? Canada, UK, Australia, where will I get a PR? कितनी छेती हो जाएगा? कितने पैसे लगने हैं? मेरा तुसी पेपर कर दो, काम कर दो. A lot of the time the students won't even know probably what they're signing, what the paperwork is, and then you get into all sorts of things like, documentation that's not genuine, all sorts of things like that. But I think, back to your point, the drive is probably just because you've had a large number of people migrate, perhaps do well, get good jobs, there's some success stories, build businesses, etc., and then that kind of
and
drives.
I get big part also, because we Indians are hardworking.
Yeah.
We are street smart, right? So the rationale which been given by many is that उतनी मेहनत हम वहाँ करेंगे और में कमाएंगे, right? And उतनी मेहनत हम जितना जल्दी जाएंगे उतना जल्दी सेटल हो जाएंगे. And I've seen people who have they are working in McDonald's. They are not absolutely low level, but probably they manage a couple of McDonald's in Edinburgh, and he owns 15 properties worth 100 crores within 15 years. Will you get that opportunity in India working at McDonald's to own 100 crores of properties legally and working hard? So that's a big, but those are only few, and even we can talk in, probably in Malayalam, if some of your friends or your future prospective students who reach out to you, and they're like, you right now you're on camera, right, and you're representing a university, so you will talk about good things and they are true things, right? But do you have kids?
Yeah, I do.
How old is it?
I'm a 20-year-old and a 12-year-old.
And you just mentioned, right? So let's say, your younger brother calls you, Thambi, for example, right? Please do with that. Thambi, should I come or not? The response we give to a younger brother or a younger sister is the response, which is from heart. Right?
So it's true and honest.
It's very subjective. Nothing is right and wrong. Nothing is right and wrong. And in fact, I was happy when spouse visa was questioned. So that's where lots of abuse of the system happened. Right? Though I was not happy, it could have not totally taken away. It could have been selective and case to case.
Yeah.
Right? But again, nothing can be perfect. So, what will you, you're the star, you have the camera. What you want to say to them
Yeah, I think first thing is,
in your local language.
or I think I would better in English. So
No,
that-
no, you're just I mean, what 2-3 years you have gone? Come
No,
on.
not in that manner. I think I articulate better in English. That's
No,
why.
I want you to articulate because in your mother language you say it through and it comes from heart.
So it's like നിനക്ക് എന്ത് ചെയ്യണം, that what you want to do is എന്ത് പഠിക്കണം, where do you want to be in life, or എങ്ങനെ ചെയ്യണം, and how you want to do it. So in simple terms, it's like, what do you expect in life? Is it travel? Do you want to go experience, get out of your comfort zone? It doesn't have to be London, doesn't have to be UK, doesn't have to be US.
Yeah.
You can go anywhere in the world. It's about what you want in life. Like so I have a younger
In a
sister.
good way.
I call her Aivin Saji, and then so she wants to she's trying for her higher studies. So I tell her, നിനക്ക് എന്ത് വേണം, what you expect out of your, നിനക്ക് എന്ത് വേണം ആ 2 വർഷം പഠിക്കാൻ പോകുമ്പോൾ. Is it just academics, or do you look at further things? Travel ചെയ്യാനാണോ? Do you want to experience different cultures? Do you want to maybe അവിടെ കുറച്ച് വർഷം കൂടി you want to work in that particular country? What is that you expect? So based on her expectation, I would give an answer accordingly. And I think that should be the advice everyone should give, not just a brother, but then even if you go to a consultant, I think the consultant should actually understand what is that you're looking for, and then give you a realistic idea and keep your expectations also realistic. So like as you said, many go to London, they think it's an easy life. Because I think in today's generation, everyone has a false sense of information because of social media. Like you see people going from
Perfect life.
yeah, so it's like, but then behind the scenes, you actually don't know the hardship and the work that's going on. Like, so I think having that realistic expectation for yourself and also getting that valuable information before you go, be prepared of what to expect when you land there, rather than going there and just going on the whim. Again, so that's my
Good,
answer.
well, and really great. Ashwin, with Hindi and I was me to understand this, but you have a 20-year-old, right? And what he's doing?
It's a girl. She's my daughter is into 4th year of BBA LLB. It's a combination. Typically in India for 5 years. She's pursuing it from Mahindra University in Hyderabad. Yeah.
Why not you?
She would be going for masters.
But why not undergrad?
Undergrad, well, we were little conscious that our kids stay for some more time with us. You know how the households are. Yeah, once you are done with your masters, and she probably might very well try to work in that particular country. So we were a bit what you call selfish in order to have her with us for some more years. But very 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 likely, she also says that she would be taking up mostly a corporate law in one of the universities, most likely.
Middlesex?
Yeah.
If you get 100% scholarship.
So with or without scholarship also, if we have the right course and the right set of people, why not? Yeah. Although I leave that choice because I have been promoting higher education.
Whatever said, saying Telugu.
And so is you talked about my younger one, although he doesn't have much of an
Telugu.
idea. Well, అందరికీ నమస్కారం. Yes. సార్ నన్ను పూర్తిగా తెలుగులో మాట్లాడమంటున్నారు. Well, బ్రిటిష్ ఎడ్యుకేషన్ యూకేకి మీ కెరీర్ని చాలా 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 ఇంప్రూవ్ చేస్తుంది. ఎందుకంటే మీకు ఆపర్చునిటీస్ అనేవి ఓన్లీ ఇండియాలో కాకుండా బయట కంట్రీస్లో రావడానికి యూకేలో ఎడ్యుకేషన్ చాలా దోహదపడుతుంది. మీరు సర్టన్ మీలో ఉన్న డ్రీమ్స్ని, ఆస్పిరేషన్స్ని అన్నిటినీ కూడా మ్యాచ్ చేసేందుకు బ్రిటిష్ డిగ్రీస్ చాలా హెల్ప్ చేస్తాయి. ఇండియాలో చాలా కోర్సులు చేయడానికి మీకు రకరకాల కామన్ ఎంట్రన్స్ టెస్ట్లు రాయాల్సి వస్తుంది. ఇక్కడ చాలా కష్టమవుతుంది. ఇటువంటివి బ్రిటిష్ ఎడ్యుకేషన్ బాగా ఎక్కువ పర్సంటేజ్ ఉన్న వాళ్ళని కాకుండా తక్కువ పర్సంటేజ్ ఉన్న వాళ్ళని కూడా ఈక్వల్గా ట్రీట్ చేస్తుంది. మీరు మంచి మంచి యూనివర్సిటీస్లో ఆల్మోస్ట్ ఉన్న అన్ని యూనివర్సిటీలు కూడా ప్రపంచంలో 10% టాప్ యూనివర్సిటీస్లోనే బ్రిటిష్ యూనివర్సిటీస్ ఉన్నాయి. సో మీకు ఎడ్యుకేషన్ క్వాలిటీ చాలా బాగా ఉంటుంది ఇక్కడ. మీరు తప్పకుండా మీ అండర్ గ్రాడ్యుయేషన్ అయినా పోస్ట్ గ్రాడ్యుయేషన్ అయినా బ్రిటిష్ యూనివర్సిటీస్, పర్టికులర్గా లండన్ అనేది చాలా గ్రేట్ ప్లేస్ చదువుకోవడానికి. అందులో మా యూనివర్సిటీ ఇంకా బెటర్, మిడిల్సెక్స్ యూనివర్సిటీ. సో డెఫినెట్లీ మీరు వచ్చి ఇక్కడ if at all one wants to take up that, it's the choice of the student. Yeah. You ask me, well, I'm at this point of time, I work for this university, I would want to convert.
And you've seen, also you're on the ground, so you
Absolutely.
seen it.
Yes, that makes sense.
Professor Board, what do you gonna say in Hindi? You know,
I don't think you'll hear anything from me in Hindi. I think that's why the subtitles go the other way. But I have two children.
you know, he should be learning.
But to be honest, he is very well versed with India and its
Indian-
culture.
Indian-
I've been to India over many, many years.
So you should be, have some.
I think I'll admit that I'm a lazy person. I think most British people are lazy because we expect and we have the advantage that most people learn English as a second language. And so when it comes to do the British then learn a second language, then we don't have the same drive to do that.
Trust me, try this, and it's a request, suggestion, request that I've seen couple of deans and VCs speaking Hindi, and the trust level, the confidence level, the room is different. So why should you win those parties? And gone are the days when my daughter is going to a school wherein they are starting with Hindi. Because there's a thesis that when you learn in your mother tongue or natural or mother tongue, initially your cognition mind works better, your concepts get better clear than just learning. Right? Great. Thank you.